We are here at the Maschhoffs headquarters in Carlisle, Illinois, with a panel to discuss some questions around biosecurity, logistics, and health. My name is Danielle Solis. I'm the communications specialist. Been with the company for about 8 years. The Maschhoffs is a fifth-generation family-owned company. We are one of the largest network of family-owned pig farms in North America, with about 500 plus family farm partners. We have 4+ million market pigs to 4 customers, and we're decentralized operations that span 7 states. We have about 1,100 employees, 180,000 sows, 3 feed mills, and 4 transportation washes. If we can go around the room and introduce yourselves. Rebecca, we'll start with you.
My name is Rebecca Keel. I'm the onboarding and training manager at the MPF Sow Farm. I've been with the company for 7 years. I do all the onboarding, the new hire paperwork, and the training of new hires for the first 2 to 3 weeks.
My name is Lexi Ammon. I've been with the company for 3.5 years, and my role here is part-time feed order desk, so taking care of all the feed orders in and out, and part-time IQ and specialist, so entering in the genetic data that comes in and out from our farm.
I'm Zoe Dibble. I'm a health and animal care associate. I've been with the company for about 9 months. I report directly to our herd veterinarian, and so assist him in diagnostics and collection and daily tasks. And then on the animal care side, I do PQA audits and caretaker training.
Hi, I'm Brooke Melcher, and I've been with the Maschhoffs for just a little over 2 years. I'm also a health and animal care associate within the Midwest region, and I do the same job that Zoe does, but I would also add on that we work with truck washes, doing quarterly truck wash audits, working with our third-party auditors to make sure our trailers are being cleaned, and then also conduct biosecurity audits on the farms.
My name is Austin Lane. I'm a senior production manager in Central Iowa. I report to our associate director, Sarah Stoutner, here in Iowa. I am in the Central Prairie region, and I've been with the Maschhoffs for just about 6 years now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lexi Ammon. I've been with the Maschhoffs for just over a year now. I am a supply chain associate. So when I started in supply chain, was on the marketing team, scheduling market loads into Hormel in Austin, Minnesota, and now work on the flow side and schedule and plan our wean and feeder movements.
All right, so everyone on the phone has a vital role in ensuring not only that pigs are moving or barns are being fed, but that biosecurity is of the utmost importance. What does a general routine look like from a biosecurity standpoint? Looking at it from the barns, the office, the feed mills, every aspect of our company.
At the sow farm, every day, we shower in and shower out to our facilities, making sure that we leave our boots on the outside of the shower, leave our boots, and then move our legs over to the other side of the bench to shower in and make sure we don't cross and break the clean, dirty lines in the showers to prevent viruses and disease breaks into our farms. We also make sure that we have our food that is entered into the facility via UV chamber disinfectant. And then we also, for our large supplies, we put in a fumigation chamber. On the weekly, we rodent bait to prevent, that's another way that disease can enter our facilities, as well as making sure bird netting is around our facilities, because that's another way viruses and disease can break. A lot of culling trucks, gilt entry vehicles as well. Every week we have to make sure and inspect the trailers to make sure that they don't have manure as well in there that can break our farms. And then mortality, composting every day of our deads as well. and making sure we have the proper downtime between farms, 2 nights down or 1 night down or what have you. And the only other thing I thought of was the visitor check-ins. Make sure when we have visitors visiting from outside our facilities, making sure they have the proper downtime before they enter into our barns.
I guess I would say that wean to market side of things is similar to the sow farms, but maybe just not as strict, or maybe we don't have as many steps. The biggest thing to keep in mind when you walk into a wean to market barn is if you see a piece of red tape or you see a red line, that means stop. Don't cross that red line until you have figured out what the biosecurity protocol is, as far as it a shower in, shower out, or just change your clothes or change your boots. So kind of take a step back. If you see a piece of red tape or a red line, figure out what logically makes the most sense to keep the site the safest that you can. And then obviously of these new sites, the Danish entry, you can take your clothes off on the dirty side and shower in, and there should be clothes on the clean side to where then you can enter the barn without any worries. But with older sites and different styles of barns, there are a few different layouts and a few different ways to do it. But the goal would be to shower in and change your clothes and boots, and never cross lines with your outside clothes or shoes. But sometimes that isn't always possible with these wean to market or feeder to market barns. So you just gotta try and use common sense and what makes the most sense to to keep the barns clean. We as well use a lot of rat bait and disinfect things coming in. We don't have UV chambers, but we use a lot of Clorox wipes and Clorox sprays, as well as using outside boots. So we change our boots if we have to go outside to switch over a feed bin, or need to take deads out or mortality out, or if the barns are detached from one another. We change into outside boots and either carry boots that go into the barn to the other barn, or preferably have a different set of boots over there to where we can leave the outside boots outside or in a tote on the inside without ever touching ground inside the barn, and then switching in that way. Another big thing for us as far as biosecurity goes, unfortunately, when you have livestock, you have dead stock. So mortality needs to go out at the very last thing you do. And you can either take it out to either your mortality dumpster or compost pile using your outside boots as your last thing, or better yet, when you shower out and change into your outside clothes, taking care of it that way. But that is a big thing to keep in mind, or if you're ever choring a barn or teaching somebody how to chore, is if you can ever put off going outside towards the end, that is the best way to do it. Is in my vehicle or in my truck. Obviously use Clorox wipes once or twice a week to wipe everything down, just to keep any disease that may have came in, try and get rid of it. Otherwise, utilizing gray or plastic booties, and to keep in mind that before your feet hit the ground outside, it needs to go. The booty needs to be on, and before you step back into your vehicle, it needs to be off. So that way you're not cross-contaminating anything. And then I also use hand sanitizer before I go into a site, and immediately when I get out of the site. Just helps me keep my hands clean, and anything I may touch hopefully keeps disease out and keeps it cleaner that way.
And really from an office perspective, we consider the office, I guess what you could call dirty, obviously, since we have so many employees and visitors kind of in and out. We want to make sure that, to Rebecca's point, that we're being mindful of where were we last. How many days or nights down did we have from the office before we stepped foot in a barn? That's a big biosecurity piece for us, to ensure that we're not potentially bringing in any disease that may have been drug into the office. From a communications perspective, I thought it would be interesting to share. We have, cameras and other equipment that potentially could carry disease that at times we bring into a barn to make sure that we're capturing what goes on in the day of a life of a sow farm or a wean market barn. We have to make sure that we're disinfecting every nook and cranny of our equipment, putting them through the UV chambers if possible, and using any measure of keeping that equipment clean and safe. Also has to have the same amount of downtime, just like a human does. So I thought that was an interesting aspect. Anyone else have anything to add from an office perspective?
No, you hit that pretty well, Danielle. The only thing I was going to say, and maybe this is something Chelsea can talk on, because I know there's different routes for feed, especially on the sow farm side, even other sites from a health status wise. Chelsea, I don't know if you want to touch on that. You would know a lot more than that than I would.
All right, from a feed mill biosecurity standpoint, we typically start with our clean sites first, making them the first loads of the day, followed by going to what we consider the sites after, following the vet biosecurity protocol. Each mill has different tiers that each site flows under, so just making sure we are following that accordingly. After we go to certain tiers or certain sites that may carry a disease or just having health challenges, we typically wash trucks after going to that site and disinfect while they have to sit down for a night. And then also just kind of the ins and outs of mills, just the daily cleaning or blowing out after you make a day's run of feed. Also, just keeping rodents and pests down, just making sure everything's in check there. And that way disease is not spread as fast, along with in the winter when we do have health challenges, the different roads and routes. Not every feed truck can travel the same way, just due to biosecurity. So really making sure the drivers understand where the booties when they get out of their truck and into their truck, as well as when they get to the feed mill, making sure they put on a different set of booties, and then once they get in, dispose of them properly, as well as using hand sanitizer and cleaning supplies to make sure their trucks are clean accordingly.
From a transport logistics standpoint, biosecurity wise, there's a lot of different factors that we take into account, whether we're moving market loads, coal loads, wean pigs, feeder pigs, any stage of life. We're looking at health statuses of the different farms to make sure that we are following those biosecurity practices. So if we have any sort of sites that are going to both be putting on the same truck, share a load, do a split load, whether it's a market load or even from a sow farm taking wean pigs to maybe two different sites, we're checking in on the health status of those different sites just to make sure that whichever the first stop is and going to the second stop isn't going to cause any downstream effects where those trucks are going. And then from that standpoint, after those pigs are delivered or taken to market, those trucks are going to be washed. And then, right now there's a lot of different health issues in the industry. And so making sure that if there are health challenge groups or farms that our trucks are going to, even some of those are getting double washed before they go back to another truck wash that kind of feeds a lot of our transport trucks for some of those higher biosecurity sites in sow farms. So just making sure that we are keeping everything as tight as we can and not transporting any diseases via transport on those trucks. So last week, I looked at what our numbers were for how many hogs that we move and transport weekly. So total, last week we moved 185,635 pigs across the company. So what that kind of all entails is any movement at all, whether it's taking loads out of finishing sites to market, coal loads, loads from the sow farm, coal sow loads, whether it's feeder pigs, wean pigs from the sow farm to our wean and market sites, and then any feeder or wean select movements that we're going to take into some of those developers to utilize as guilds in the system. So have a lot of moving parts and pieces each week. So when it comes to the tracking piece of how we are able to track all the pigs in our system, it it is extremely important from start to finish to be able to keep track of all the head that we have in our system and where everything is moving, because there is so much moving, so many moving parts each week. So even from before the pigs are born from the sow farm, we're having those sow farm employees giving us projections of how many wean pigs that they're going to have each week. They're keeping track of inventory in the sow farm, keeping track of mortality all the way down the line. So as we're moving these pigs each stage in their life, moving them to the wean to market sites, when we send those wean pigs out, again, we're projecting for those sites how many pigs that they're going to get. When they get that load of wean pigs, they're going to grade them in, give us that number of what they actually received. And then each week turning in mortality, if they've had any mortality, again, just to keep an updated inventory. And then when we go to thin them down, if they have an overload to send to a feeder to market site, same thing there. We're going to have an idea how many we're going to send to that feeder market site. And then once that site receives those, grade those in, again, give us an inventory, continually turning in mortality. And then again, that goes all the way out through marketing those sites at the end when we're sending those to the packing plants. That way, again, we just have as much of a updated inventory as we can to just keep track of all the pigs and where everything's moving, because there's so many moving parts throughout the whole system.
From a feed perspective, just to keep track of head counts, it is crucial for us to make sure our pigs are fed the right diet at the right time. Therefore, we request head counts at the beginning of the lot, and then when they transition over to the feeders, as well as weekly check-ins with mortality reporting and etc. So last week, on average, we had 25,416 tons of feed that we fed to all of our sites, and overall a year-to-date average of tons is 696,838 pounds of feed.
Okay, then we will kind of tie it all up from a health perspective. Their question here, like I said, we'll carry down what are the benefits of biosecurity practices, and why is it important that they're consistent at all locations?
So how are we keeping pigs healthy, and kind of displaying that to the public? So the public, being our customers, they're constantly demanding low cost protein with reduced antibiotic usage. And so the way that we can directly impact that is by understanding our current flows of pigs. So where they're coming from, their genetics, what diseases they're already bringing with them, and then being able to closely monitor that disease. And then, we're always saying, be smart with our antibiotics, finding the right drug for the right bug. And just, any way that we can monitor that and either reduce our antibiotic usage or see how it's affecting the animal, if they're responding, stuff like that. And then providing proper management practices. So adequate feed, water, air, and care is our big four. And that's kind of how we reduce the disease impact. Animal welfare plays a key role into that. And so how our caretakers are, taking care of our animals. Generally, a pig that's being taken care of just does better. We're providing water, we're providing feed, we're treating when they need, and they're just being able to grow and be a lot healthier, thinking about ventilation and the environment that they're in. And that kind of leads into our animal care program as well, which is tailored to providing the best care and practices for our pigs. And so from that animal care standpoint, things that we do to be proactive is our PQA audits, any kind of training that needs to be constantly available for our sow farm employees, our wean to market employees, and any kind of production partners or managers, kind of having us all on the same page and always having, those resources available. And so to tie in our biosecurity, we touched on it a lot, but having a standard. So making sure that everyone is on the same page. We're all, following those biosecurity practices to a T. Like we said, they're just so important, whether we're just, defending our clean, dirty line at all times, keeping our vehicles clean, watching and monitoring, the sites that you're going to. So coming from or if you go to a dirty site, you make sure, that's your last stop of the day. We're not dragging that into a group of weaned pigs or, even a group of market hogs. So ways that, that affects health, just dragging PED or any kind of disease into a barn ends up affecting the whole site. And, there's a lot of steps that go into that and go into, preventing that. And so the health team works really hard just to constantly improve our practices and our protocols. And so any way that animal care can step in as well. We've been doing some biosecurity audits to kind of observe how our caretakers, move throughout the barn, how we're bringing supplies in, if we're disinfecting or not, and just finding those ways where continuous improvement is available. And so what opportunities do we have to continue to get better for the sake of our pigs?
Zoe, I think you did a really nice job explaining all of that. I would bolt on that one of the really important things that we do at both sow farms and our wean to market sites with production partners is continuous training, making sure that all the employees are aware of our biosecurity practices. We have a program in place where they can report biosecurity breaches in an attempt to really communicate that opportunity farms within the system. So it gets sent out on a weekly basis, and then farms are trained on how to prevent what had happened at another farm. So constant training at our sow farms as well as production partner sites. So making sure that our production partners know what meds to give, when to give meds, how to properly administer those medications from a health standpoint. And then the benefits of practicing all of these biosecurity pieces that we have in place is that when we have disease breaks on farms, we're losing millions of dollars. And so whenever that happens, that is a whole downstream effect. So yes, it might only affect one farm, that breaks with PED, but literally the company can lose millions of dollars because of that. It affects, the employees at those sow farms or at the production partner sites. It affects their overall attitude because they're the ones that are having to deal with those disease breaks. And so it's really important from an overall animal well-being standpoint, but also from an employee well-being standpoint too, to prevent some of those disease breaks by following biosecurity practices.
And I can add to that. I mean, I've been through 3 different breaks on our sow farm, just making sure that employees are trained properly. And the first day of employment, I always go through their PQA certifications, and then their safe pig handling videos so they understand the importance of animal care and treatments of animals and animal welfare. And then also I try to go through the biosecurity practices in place for entering the facilities and what have you. So it's extremely important that we train our employees properly so they understand the risks.
I'll even add too, from an office perspective, there's continued training and videos that people in the office participate in as well. So even though we're not, directly in the farms seeing the pigs every day, we're still getting that continued education and training from our end to make sure that we understand biosecurity practices, not only what they should be doing on the farm level, but also, again, just from a logistics standpoint for my role specifically, that we can be able to identify and help make sure that we're mitigating any biosecurity risk, even though we're not directly on farm, but just what we can mitigate as much as we can in our positions.
But not only do we train our caregivers and our production partners, but we also train our transport team. So they have procedures for how to enter and exit trailers to be biosecure. So really our trainings hit so many different people within our system. It's not just people on farm to get trained on biosecurity protocols.
I guess I don't have anything as far as like biosecurity, anything like that, but I would just say a note from somebody that was kind of in their shoes, being on the Team Purebred board and growing up in the show stock industry. There's so much crossover from the show industry to the commercial industry that brings so much good to the commercial industry that people don't realize. So I would like to just encourage them to not be afraid to reach out into the commercial world, reach out to the Maschhoffs to get a job, even if they've never been exposed to it, just because it's all about working with people and animals and all the little things you can fill in, because the show industry has taught you to be responsible and taught you to look at the details, and that's the main thing as far as the commercial side of things too. And bringing in new ideas that happened in the show industry to the commercial world keeps things fresh and keeps things good. So even if you think, I'm just a show person, I won't fit in the commercial world, I kind of thought the same thing. But man, it's been good, and it's been really rewarding to be able to bring in new ideas and have an idea of what's going on, even though I was a show kid. So I just encourage you to look into that sector of the industry as well, even if you don't think you'd fit in, or even if you think you're just a show person.
And same as well. I came from a show pig. I was a show pig Yorkshire breeder, and I didn't know a lot about the commercial side. And when I graduated college, I work here, so I'm glad I did. I've learned a lot from the Maschhoffs. So.
Absolutely. I would echo that as well. I think there's a lot of us on the call that have probably come from the show side and have been able to be involved in both aspects. And like Austin said, just to echo, even though the show pig side of the industry is such a small portion, that's also a lot of what the public sees, especially at different shows and things like that. So just understanding how big of a role that the show industry does play in the industry altogether, and just how to take opportunity of different experiences. So like the Maschhoffs does a great job where they have a scholarship program each year. I know I and Zoe both have gone through that program before, but had the opportunity to get exposed to the Maschhoffs. It was a 2 to 3 day experience. Got to go in barn, talk with different employees and different departments. I know at Iowa State there was a lot of different opportunities to take trips and get into commercial barns, or even if you can't get in a barn, talk with those involved in the commercial industry. So just take every experience that you can, especially if you don't come from that background, don't come with a commercial background, be able to get exposure, add people to your resource list and into your network, and utilize that to continue with your passion about the industry even after you graduate from college.
The Maschhoffs really does take a lot of pride and investment in their people, and making sure that personal development and development within the company is a top priority. And we've talked a lot about biosecurity, and of course, that is all extremely important, but they also recognize that in our people and just wanting to make our people better. So there definitely is an opportunity for everybody at the Maschhoffs.